On the border of the Warring States era and the Edo period, the Battle of Sekigahara ended. After the fighting, the allies of the Western coalition retreated. But only the detachment of the Shimazu clan fought to the last. Its participant was a young and talented samurai Toyohisa Shimazu. Left in such small numbers with his warriors, he fought fearlessly, breaking into the enemy ranks. With great efforts, he approached the commander Naomasu and almost destroyed him, but his army managed to react and spears flew at Toyohisa. Toyohisa always gets his way, which is why he destroys Naomasu. After that, his army flees in fear. The wounds received by Toyohisa were severe, but despite this, he went to the capital of Satsuma. Suddenly, the hero found himself in an absolutely white corridor, in which there was only a desk, with a man in glasses sitting behind it. Without giving a word, he sent the samurai through one of the many doors, as it turned out, leading to parallel worlds. He lies unconscious in the new world, where the elves find him. They decide to take it to other wanderers, as they call those who came here from a parallel world. The wanderers decide to bandage Toyohisa's wounds, thereby saving his life. When Toyohisa wakes up, he thinks that he has gone to hell, since he did not expect to see Oda Nobunaga alive here, who was a legendary war 18 years ago, and even more so Yoichi Nasu, who lived 4 centuries ago. And they also accidentally fell into this world, like Toyohisa. Meanwhile, they are being watched by Alminia, a magician from a group of Octobrists who believes that the wanderers will bring this world to the end of the world. She reports their movements around the magic ball to a man named Saimai. He wants to meet them and understand their intentions. At this moment, the army under the command of Aram will attack the village of the elves for helping the wanderers, and also collect tribute. The smell of war was smelled by the samurai, so they run to the village. Along the way, they meet scouts and destroy them, thus saving 2 elves. They understand that they are army soldiers, so they have a commander. They want to overthrow the commander and seize territory. Alminia hears this and informs Saimai about it, then he understood their intention. Meanwhile, Aram's army is destroying some of the elves, as they want to keep them at bay and rule them as slaves. Suddenly they see that the field on which it was necessary to harvest is on fire. It turns out that this was Nobunaga's plan to leave the elves without a livelihood, since after that they will definitely follow the wanderers. Through the fire passes Toyohisa, who destroys an entire army single-handedly. When Toyohisa is left alone with Aram, he sees many elves destroyed, which infuriates him. He offers to fight him, and he reciprocates. Toyohisa throws a sword at him, but he deflects it. It was a deception to get close to Aram and capture him. On the ground, he starts attacking him with his sword sheath, leaving him no chance. He approaches the relative of the destroyed elf so that he will avenge his relatives. Then they get even with their offender Aram with the whole village. At this point, the wanderers become the new leaders of the entire village. Izzy comes to Murasaki, who reports that she sent a black king to this world, who will completely destroy everyone, including wanderers. In the kingdom of Carniata, Saimai invites an old man to lead an army, but everyone starts laughing. Then Saimai decides to withdraw all the wanderers from this kingdom. But it turned out to be too late, because the army of the Black King, consisting of various types of monsters and demons, had already begun to approach the Great Wall. The archers standing on the wall fight back, but soon a dragon arrives and destroys the archers. Soon the Black King orders Hijikata, Joan of Dark, Anastasia to destroy the kingdom to smithereens. Then Hijikata sneaks inside the fortress and destroys the army, and Jean comes to his aid, who sets fire to the fortress. At that moment, a new wanderer named Kano Naoshi appears, who flies an airplane. He sees all the destruction, and therefore destroys the dragons. Saimai, seeing that they have no chance of winning this battle, decides to retreat along with the wanderers, and therefore they rush at full speed away from the fortress to join Toyohisa's team. The fortress is captured, and the Black King orders to find the wanderers. Meanwhile, Toyohisa and his friends discover Alminia and start interrogating her. She reveals that they are confronting the brats and they are uniting the wanderers, and they are also looking for an army commander. From that moment on, the trio begins the conquest under the command of Toyohisa to bring peace and prosperity to this people. Meanwhile, the Black King heals all of his fighters with just a touch of his hand. And Naoshi, flying on his plane, begins to fall due to aircraft breakdowns. Upon landing, he sees eyes from the bushes and wishes to deal with them. The elves were left without food and they will come for them to collect taxes. They have no choice but to arm themselves and fight back. But Yorinasu arrives and speaks in sign language as they speak different languages. It turns out that Alminia always had cards with magical languages that can help the wanderers speak the language of the elves. This card is used by Toyohisa, who motivates the people with his eloquence. The elves agree to be on a team with the wanderers, and therefore, when the army comes to the village, they do not find anyone there. Toyohisa has a plan to catch them off guard, and so they sit in a tree. Before leaving, they filled all the toilets and wells with their waste. Meanwhile, they prepare their weapons to attack. The bottom had a motivation to avenge their kind, and even more so for women, since they were taken by the commander-in-chief of the army. Elves prefer the bow more, as they were excellent archers before their slavery. And Nobunaga made a pit with waste, while putting the bodies there, and the heads were buried as expected. This is done in order to harvest in the future, as well as create gunpowder for guns. Yorinasu demonstrates his skill with a bow. Each time he hit exactly in the center, while cutting his arrow. He brought the elves' armor that was taken from the previous owners. When they were ready, Toyohisa began to attack the soldiers, while turning more and more attention to himself. He diverted the attention of the soldiers at the entrance so that the elves would set fire to their village, as this village is a symbol of their slavery. Then they moved on to the soldiers themselves and began to destroy them, while dipping arrows in the waste to finally hit them from the inside. To do this, the elves closed the well, which does not give access to water. After destroying 20% of the army, they begin to run in fear, and Toyohisa came for a trophy, the head of the army commander. He destroys the commander and takes his trophy. The elves won, but to finish the battle, you need to finish what you started. Therefore, they go into the forest and destroy the remaining army. In the kingdom of Orte, Adolf Hitler is waiting for news from his soldiers, and thinks the elves are in revolt. Therefore, he decides to attack other villages in order to show his strength and force them to keep everyone in fear. But an army of soldiers comes and brings news. When they open the door, they discover that the wanderers are hiding under the armor, and it was their plan to capture this fortress and free the women and children. Toyohisa and the elves enter the cell and see a terrible sight. After that, Toyohisa is unwilling to spare anyone. Meanwhile, other elves take everything from the fortress, including documents. Nobunaga was looking at the painting, but he was placed by one of the elves, who informed him that Toyohisa was gathering all the men from the fortress in the courtyard to destroy them. Nobunaga goes to save Toyohisa, since his hands are not yet dirty and he is still young, and Nobunaga is very sinful. Upon arrival, he knocks out Toyohisa and orders the elves to destroy the men. When Toyohisa wakes up, he wants to bury the heads properly and use the bodies for gunpowder in his guns. Rumors of wanderers spread to all nearby villages. The wanderers saved the elves and attacked the castle of the invaders. They then returned all the elves to their women, who delivered letters to all of them for other elves to join them in order to be stronger and capture new territories. Count Saint-Germain, a powerful aristocrat who owns a quarter of the Orta Empire, learns about the uprising of the elves, and therefore comes to a military meeting, where he proposes his plan for the development of events. Meanwhile, elves from other villages arrive and join Toyohisa's team. Toyohisa himself came up with the idea of organizing popular meetings to resolve important issues there, but he does not want to take responsibility for being king. Nobunaga asks the elf to make copies of his weapon, and they will need a lot of waste for gunpowder. The new elves begin their bow training under the command of Yoshinasu, while Toyohisa teaches them how to use the sword. At night, when everyone was about to sleep, the army of the Black King rides on horseback, which means that the battle will begin now. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like and press the bell so as not to miss new videos. Aniland was with you. Bye everyone.